Welcome friends to another r/Am I the Jerk video. I might be a jerk, but is it too much to ask to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our first story of the day is by Ash569075. Am I the jerk for my response to my sister's boyfriend's brutal honesty? I'm female 35. My 27-year-old sister started dating one of those brutally honest guys a few months ago. He can be quite rude and make backhanded comments about me and the family sometimes, which is bothersome. But my sister says he's not malicious, but is just the brutally honest type, and we should get used to it. I visited my parents' house to celebrate my sister's birthday, and my husband couldn't come with me because he was busy. After the party, we all sat down for dinner, and my sister's boyfriend said it was weird that my husband and I don't have kids despite being married for 6 years now. I was shocked that he brought this up, but I gave a short answer stating that it's because of infertility issues. He asked on which side, and I didn't want to answer, but my sister said it's on my side. I got uncomfortable as he looked at me for a second and said that maybe not having kids now is a good thing because he thought women over 30 might produce defective babies due to age. I told him it was none of his business, but he said that he was just giving his honest opinion and that's all. I, in return, told him while maintaining eye contact, "Trust me, if I wanted a jerk's opinion, I would have farted." Literally everyone at the table burst into laughter, and my sister and her boyfriend were stunned. A few seconds later, her boyfriend excused himself out, and my sister followed them and sent me a text after they left, saying I was mean and disrespectful towards her boyfriend and insulted him maliciously just because he stated his honest opinion. She also said I ruined her birthday by being petty and making her boyfriend the joke of the night in front of the family. I didn't respond, but she demanded an apology via mail as soon as possible. Mom agreed that I shouldn't have said what I said and should have just ignored him knowing how he is. I think I am the jerk, but I'm not sure. So I'm gonna come right out and admit it. I'm pretty biased against these brutally honest guys. I've known a person or two like that, and in my brutally honest opinion, when these people say, "I'm just giving my honest opinion, that's all," I think what they're actually saying that for is to use it as an excuse to say something that just doesn't need to be said. It was weird that he pried on which side the infertility issues were on, and then afterwards when they go and blurb and basically say, "Well, maybe it's for the best, you're past your peak. If you had a baby now, it might be defective." I got 2 words in reply to that. Who asked? Who cares that you feel that way? Nobody needs to know that. Let me ask you guys, are you okay being around people who give their brutally honest opinions or thoughts? Or do you have a dislike for it? Maybe they're using it as a proxy to just be a jerk. Let me know what side you guys fall on in the comments down below. Our next story is by Glop Blop. Am I the jerk? I ate an entire cake by myself in a single day. Yesterday was my 27th birthday. I haven't had a birthday cake for many years because my wife felt that it would go to waste considering it's just the 2 of us at home. So she would buy just 2 slices of cake, one for her and one for me. This time, however, I wanted a cake for my birthday. I've been feeling down lately and thought that maybe a birthday cake would uplift my mood. So I asked my wife if she'd bake me one of her famous plum cakes. She usually makes it for girls' nights and family potlucks, etc. She agreed on the condition that I'd have to finish the entire cake and not waste any of it because she'd only be able to eat 1 slice of it. I happily agreed to her condition, and she got on to baking the cake. Yesterday morning, we cut the cake and she had a slice for breakfast. She then said that I'd have to finish the cake by the end of the day because she didn't want any cake leftovers. I managed to finish the rest of the cake during the course of the day pretty easily. When my wife came to know that I'd finished the cake, she started scolding me, calling me greedy and a pig. She said she didn't think I'd be such a glutton and finish the entire cake all by myself. She also said she's never making a cake for me again. Am I the jerk? No, I don't think OP's the jerk. This is like that classic cutesy girlfriend fast food thing where they say, no, they don't want any fries, they're good, they're full, so you get yours, and then they mooch off of you anyways. But then you take that, you add some crazy to it, and you dial it up to 11, then you get this weird situation where they literally say to do something, you do it, and then they flip out calling you a glutton, saying they'll never make a cake for you ever again. What do they want? Our next story is by It Rains, It Pours 1. Am I the jerk for not agreeing with my daughter on taking her future husband's last name? My daughter, 23, got engaged to her now fiancé, Aaron, 29. Aaron comes from a different place than my family, and in our family, all women kept their maiden name even after they got married. Last week, my daughter and Aaron visited to talk about the wedding, and then brought up the last name arrangements. I was taken by surprise when my daughter said she'd planned on taking Aaron's last name once they get married. I truly was not expecting this because, like I said, all women in the family kept their maiden name, which is a part of their identity and legacy, and I couldn't help but think my daughter was throwing all that away by deciding to take Aaron's last name. I asked her if it was her decision or Aaron pressured her, and Aaron started side-eyeing me. My daughter said that it was a decision she made by herself, and she was not pressured by anyone. I told her that I don't agree with her on this decision, and that I thought it was hasty and a bit offensive of her to do that frankly. The conversation got uncomfortable and Aaron had to go outside to smoke. My daughter started arguing with me about what I just said, but I said that was truly how I felt about this whole thing, considering that she's the only member of the family to give up on her family's name. She lashed out, saying I get zero opinions on what she decides to do, and I should stop guilt-tripping her. But I don't think I was, because I was just telling her how I felt about it. She didn't like it and decided to leave early, then called my husband and ranted to him about the conversation we had. And he sided with her, saying our daughter is an adult and this kind of decision is up to her. But I still said that I disagree with her decision, no matter what her motive is, honestly. It's been a week and she hasn't called yet, probably expecting me to reach out and apologize. So I think OP is the jerk, and it's not for their opinion. I think how OP feels is totally fine. They're totally entitled to that opinion. But like OP's husband said, their daughter is an adult that's making their own decision, and whether or not you think that is personally the right or wrong decision, I think you should be able to respect them for doing what they want to do. It may very well go heavily against the grain of the family's history, but that's a decision she's making about her own life, her own name, and her own family. This next story is by Salty But Tasty. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter's principal about a teacher's rude behavior? I'm Asian American, mixed Japanese, Vietnamese, but both of my parents are second generations. So I'm more or less distracted from my ancestral heritage. My husband's Hungarian. He came to the US a few months before we met. We have 2 daughters, 8 and 5. Our older daughter had a school project about her heritage. Her project's theme was Hungary, not only because my husband's heritage is technically closer to our children, but because half of her classmates are Asian too, so with Hungary, her project could be more unique. It was a classic, cute kids project. You know, cardboard with pictures and short text. And we made Hungarian pancakes for the class. After my daughter's presentation, her teacher asked me if my husband is abusive. I was shocked. My first thought was that my daughter told something that the teacher misunderstood, but he told me that my daughter should have presented her Asian heritage, and my husband seems to have forced his culture upon us. I explained our reasons calmly. After this, I immediately went to the principal's room and told him that the teacher's behavior is unacceptable. Later, I had a phone call from the teacher. He told me that if I have any problem with him, I should tell him, not the principal, and I'm an annoying Karen. What do you think? Yeah, I think OP is not the jerk. The teacher definitely is though. I really am struggling to understand what point this teacher thought he was trying to make. Did this teacher seriously think that the dad was trying to gatekeep their ancestry? The teacher was very clearly displaying their bias, and it was a pretty ugly bias to reveal too. Our next story is by an anonymous poster. Am I the jerk for not sharing my grandmother's inheritance with my father? When I was 13 years old, my mother found out my father was having an affair, and he got the other woman pregnant. After this came out, my father confessed he was in love with this other woman and wanted to leave my mother. She was obviously heartbroken and didn't know what to do. We had moved to a new state with my father for work, so she had no family around. My father dropped us like a bad habit soon after this came out. He attempted to keep a relationship with me, but ultimately his new family was his priority, as he said. Tough to understand for a 13-year-old, but whatever. If he didn't want me, I wasn't going to need him. So my mother and I moved on. But the only way we were able to move on was with the help of my grandmother, my father's mother. She always loved us and was appalled with what her son had done to us. He stopped seeing her as well for the most part. We became very close over the years, seeing each other for special holidays and occasions while her son was nowhere to be found. She even helped my mom out momentarily when we needed it too. Unfortunately, the years caught up with her and she developed colon cancer, advanced late stage. Her decline was rapid. Within a few months, she was in hospice. Days before she passed, she asked me to call her son to come see her as she knew her time was coming. He'd only been to see her a couple of times since she had gotten sick. When he came by, I was visiting as we did every few days, and he acted like I was some random person. Grandma asked him to come back tomorrow, but he said he'd be back in a few days. She passed 4 days later without him coming back despite my calls and texts to come. She went peacefully with me and my mom by her side. That was hard. I miss her every day. She was my guardian angel most of my life, and I know she continues to watch over me. After the services, where my father did show up and make a big scene and made it about himself, we were contacted by our lawyer. Unbeknownst to everybody, she left me her house and a good amount of money, $200,000. No idea she did that, but in the will, there was a note to me from her that said, "You are worth it, love Grandma." She's amazing. Also in her will, she left my father exactly $1 as his inheritance. When he found out, he went ballistic, blowing up my phone all the time, demanding I give him his house and his money. His new wife and his son were messaging me a lot, and his son was writing on social media that I manipulated my grandmother. My father apologized and said he was under a lot of stress because he's in debt and was banking on this money to come in for bills and to send his son to college. That made me feel bad. Like, maybe I should give him something. I've thought about it a lot, and I don't think I'm going to share anything with him. And I kind of think that makes me a jerk because it seems like they really do need it. But on the other hand, screw them. I don't know. Am I the jerk? I mean, one way I think you could consider this, if OP did share some with their father, they would technically be going against the will of their own grandmother that they love dearly. I know that's not really the reason, but OP could claim that as the reason, and that would be reason enough. I definitely don't think OP's the jerk. When you walk into some money and family members know that you got that cash on hand, there's a lot of sob stories that can just pop up all of a sudden. Our next story is by Dangerous Salt 6945. Am I the jerk for a joke I made during my best man speech? I, 34-year-old male, was recently the best man at my friend's, 36-year-old male's, second wedding. I was also the best man at his first. I saw this joke online and it made me laugh, so I stole it, and for my opening speech, I said, "Right, well, welcome back everyone," which got more than a few laughs, especially from the bride, 31-year-old female, who seemed to find it hilarious. Everything went well, speech over and done with, though later on after a few drinks, my friend began to rip me a new one, telling me I was out of line with that kind of joke and how I'd embarrassed him and it wasn't funny and that I shouldn't have brought his last marriage into this. I mean, a best man speech will always be more jokey than anything, and beyond that, it was fairly tame, and that was the only reference to his last marriage. Was I really that out of line? While I do think that the best man speech is going to be very jokey, anecdotal, I think if you're going to put a risky joke out there, it doesn't hurt to go to the groom and say, "You know I'm gonna be pulling some jokes, is this okay to say, or would that make me just a total jerk?" I know it kind of kills the fun of dropping that joke bomb out of nowhere, but you'd avoid heavily impacting the groom's experience at the wedding. That said, personally, I don't think that's too crazy out of line. The bride laughed. It seemed to do well. I think personally, since the joke isn't too far over the line, but I also think the groom's totally okay to be upset about it, I'm gonna say for this story that there's no jerks at all. And our final story of the day is by Shrimps Are Delish. Am I the jerk? I ate seafood although my pregnant wife is vegan. My wife is 32 weeks pregnant. She's been vegan for the past 5 years. We switch cooking duties on alternate days. Usually I eat vegan food, and when I crave meat, I eat one of those vegan alternatives. My wife doesn't like me eating meat, so I try not to eat meat most of the time. Today, I was craving seafood, so my wife offered to make vegan alternatives for seafood. However, I like the texture of seafood, and that cannot be replicated using vegan ingredients. So I told her I'd be eating lunch outside. She protested, but I stood my ground. I prepared her a meal, and then went out for lunch. When I came home, my wife said I was inconsiderate and rude, and that I shouldn't have eaten seafood knowing she's vegan. She's now refusing to speak to me. Am I the jerk? In my eyes, I think it's pretty cut and dry that OP's not the jerk. I think it's great that OP goes out of their way to try to eat vegan as much as they can and support the choices their wife makes as much as possible. I just think in general, it should be understood in relationships especially that if one partner isn't vegan, there's probably going to be times where they eat stuff that isn't vegan. I feel like this is really a major fundamental thing that it's almost shocking that it's an issue now. To me, it just sounds like shaming and like a controlling behavior, and I think she needs to kind of get over herself. It's not the end of the world that you went out and had some shrimp for the first time in God knows how long. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.